Hey everybody. I can't hear myself because I don't have headphones plugged in. Hey everybody. I've got a little time to do a stream as I work on editing some video. I'll be here for about the next 35 minutes. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, but I'll go ahead and get started. There's Final Cut Pro. I need to get rid of this so I can actually see it. To do for putting together podcasts or corporate content. Verdict, I would choose Descript as Okay, so this video, just so you understand, because I'm already somewhat in the middle of editing this, it's a wrap-up of my Descript versus Riverside series. So I'm talking about Descript and Riverside, comparing them as far as their editing, their magic AI-powered tools, all that stuff. For editing, I'm using my Stream Deck Plus for most of my controls while editing. I've got 8 buttons programmed and 2 knobs. I've got cut, blade, expand audio components, trim start, trim end, select, delete, and play. The 2 knobs are zoom and speed control. So I can quickly zoom in and out. And I love the Stream Deck because I can do most of my editing with my left hand, keep my right hand on the mouse, and I find it to be a much more efficient workflow. Script as providing the better editing experience here. It offers more keyboard shortcuts, which allows me to use my Stream Deck Plus to replace the mouse for many of my editing needs. I also found it to be easier to use overall and just a less frustrating process. But moving on, let's talk about their abilities to repurpose your content. You've recorded a podcast, you've got an hour-long live stream, whatever it is. You want to repurpose this, use it for shorts, or cut out smaller chunks out of it that can be used as standalone video. As expected, both use different the standalone video. As expected, I can shorten that up a little bit more. The standalone video. As expected, both use different approaches. Riverside, they go the automatic route by automatically generating some shorts and segments for you, and you can use their co-creator to give custom instructions, but I found that to be kind of hit or miss. Descript, instead, they use a Create Clips AI tool, and that's part of their Underlord. I do find Descript's option to be easier to use, and I have no problems generating both short and long clips out of my content. And since I do so many live streams, it's useful for me to be able to create clips around specific topics and package those as standalone videos, because I know not everyone wants to wade through a 90-minute live stream to find the best parts. I also use it for creating YouTube shorts. The biggest issue here, though, is when it comes to repurposing content that you didn't record in Riverside, that while I was testing these, I was unable to, when it comes to repurposing content that you didn't record in Riverside, that while I was testing these, I was unable to. The biggest issue here, though, is when it comes to repurposing content that you didn't record in Riverside, that while I was testing these, I was. I'll shorten that up just a little bit. Didn't record in Riverside, that while I was testing these, I was unable to test the initial video I was going to repurpose because Riverside just wouldn't finish processing one of the videos. I tried to upload it twice. Then I reached out to tech support. They told me to try a different browser. Okay, I did that. Same video still got stuck processing at 99%. So by default, Descript is going to win this category because I've had no problems with anything I've uploaded or recorded in Descript. Another thing, as you can see, I don't really do a whole lot of editing here. I'm just tightening up some of these longer pauses, but for the most part, I mean, I think a lot of people try to over-edit video, and it's really not that necessary most of the time. There are times where it is needed, but really, for the type of content I create, as long as it's on point and I'm not just train of thought going off somewhere just completely unrelated that has no value, there really isn't a whole lot of point to editing. And that's one of the reasons why I do script most of my content. Because for me, it makes it easier for me to hit all of the points I want to, and it allows me to stay focused. When I'm left without a script, I ramble and I'm not as concise as I want to be. So for me, scripting works. For other people, I know they don't like scripting. Maybe they like bullet points or just no planning at all and just wing it the entire time. That doesn't work for me. So I do script things. It also helps speed up the editing process because there's not nearly as much that needs to be cleaned up. And I'm not going after trying to remove all of the imperfections. I'm just trying to tighten things up where maybe there's longer gaps or any place where maybe I repeated myself. Sort of an ongoing issue during my testing has been that issue with uploading external files into Riverside for editing. There's two different places you can upload files, which is kind of confusing because they have the same name, or not same name, but it's not clear that one is for uploading kind of B-roll or layers that you want to put into a composition or project that you're working on, and the other is to upload your actual footage into the timeline. Once I discovered that upload isn't where I want to actually upload files into the editor, apparently I need to go to import files instead. But once I figured that part out, I still had problems with the files actually not really uploading. I think everything uploaded, but I had problems with them, with everything completing the processing phase. I uploaded a couple files to test out the clips. Both files uploaded, but like I said, one got stuck at 99%. The files were uploaded like 9 hours ago. We'll cut that part out. Let's see, when I record, if I find something that I put in there or scripted and I feel like this isn't working, it's not needed, I just make little notes to myself as I go. So I need to figure out where I pick up. But once I figured that part out the clips, both files uploaded, but like I said, one got stuck at 99%. The files were uploaded like 9 hours ago. Had problems with them, with everything completing the processing phase. I uploaded a couple files to test out the clips. Both files uploaded, but like I said, one got stuck at 99%. Get 99%. But once I got stuck at 99%. But once I figured, you'll notice that I spend most of my time on getting the timing right on these edits. Like I said, one got stuck at 99%. But once I figured that part out, there's not a lot we can do about jump cuts. We can zoom in and out 99%. But once I figure, and sometimes we can use a morph cut, or I guess if you're Premiere, they call it, I can't remember. Yeah, they call it morph cut in Final Cut Pro. They call it a flow transition. But once I figure, see, that's a little more noticeable than I like it. 99%. But once I, mainly because of my hand in the right corner of the frame, you can see the morphing at 99%. But once I figure, it looks almost like Back to the Future when Marty starts disappearing from the pictures. So I'll take that out. I mean, another option we have, like I said before, is we can zoom. Let's see where I'm at. Right now I'm at 115. Let's bring this down to, let's say, 108. I need to bring it down a little. Okay, so now good, but like I said, one got stuck at 99%. But once I figured that part out, now we've kind of masked that edit. A lot of times I don't worry about that, but every once in a while I'll do it. And if I do it here, I probably want to do it in some other places just for consistency. And I can copy and paste the zoom. That's all I want. I don't want to double color adjustments. They'll make things look really bad, so I'm just copying and pasting position and scale. And you can see it zooms out. Same thing. Got a bunch of cuts here. Cut there. Generally, I like to keep the more zoomed in shot as the primary shot, so when I come out of any place where I have B-roll, I want that to be the zoomed out one, or the zoomed in one. So now we've got pretty good consistency here as we go from one section to another. Like I said, one got stuck at 99%, but once I figured that part out, I still had the problem with the files, not all of the files being processed. So that's something to be aware of if you're someone who isn't recording. And I'll handle all of this kind of audio stuff when I'm done with the edit. Final Cut's just terrible with its audio handling, and I'm just much faster at it in Hindenburg. Not all of the files being processed. So that's something to be aware of if you're someone who isn't recording all of your content in Riverside. If you're going to be uploading some of it to Riverside to use. Without fail, every time I go to take a drink of water is when there's an edit that I need to make. You're someone who isn't recording all of your content in Riverside. If you're going to be uploading some of it to, in Riverside. If you're going to be uploading some of it to Riverside to use their editing features, be aware content in Riverside. If you're going to be uploading some of it to Riverside to use their editing features, be aware that it's still in beta and there might be some issues there. And it turns out that according there might be some issues there. And it turns out there might be some issues there. And it turns out we'll copy and paste again the zoom. Some issues there. And it turns out that according to tech support, the feature to add multiple uploaded files to the same timeline, like if you have two videos for an interview style podcast, you need to combine both of those into one timeline. Combine stuff like this, it's pretty easy to edit because you know right where the timing is. You need to combine both of those into one timeline. That feature isn't beta. And that's, again, another thing to keep in mind if you're planning to use this with podcast, interview-style podcast files. That I don't need that. One thing I don't always like about the Stream Deck is sometimes I push the button and I guess not hard enough, so it doesn't do anything. Review-style podcast. You need to interview-style podcast files that clients send to you or that you didn't record natively in Riverside. Verdict? Overall, I just feel like descriptive. So I need to think about how I want to present this, if I'm going to do any kind of overlays or just leave it as is. You need to vertex. Oh, I did something I didn't want to do. I cut out too much. Natively in Riverside. Verdict. Riverside. Verdict. Overall, I just feel like Descript is the better tool for editing. I can probably clean this up a little bit more. By clean up, I mean tighten it up a little bit more. Word natively in Riverside. Verdict. Overall. Verdict. Let's just get that mouth click out. Verdict. Riverside. Verdict. We'll handle that in the editing side or in the audio portion in Riverside. Verdict. Overall, I just feel like Descript is the better tool for editing and repurposing content. Their editor is more fully featured. I find it easier to use, and I find the AI-powered tools that save you time are a lot more stable, a lot more mature. They tend to give better results than what I got out of Riverside. Riverside give better results than what I got out of Riverside. Riverside here, I need to go back and check my zooms. Riverside. Verdict. Overall. Okay, there's a place where I can probably use Flow to mask this edit. And it seems to take a little bit longer to process this stuff while I'm streaming live. Usually it takes a little less time to handle the flow, edit, dissolve, transition, whatever you want to call it. Overall, that one is not going to work at all. I don't like that Back to the Future thing. Overall, so let's see if we can. Okay, so that should now look a lot better when we morph, because my mouth is closed on both sides of the cut. Yeah, this definitely takes a lot longer while I'm streaming. I hate having to wait for it to basically render, but I want to see how it looks, because if I don't check it now, I'm going to forget to come back and check it later. So this adds a little bit of time to my editing, and it's why I try to not use these too much, but in places where I have like a bunch of cuts in a really short period of time, it helps to be able to mask it and not using the zoom thing, which does call attention to itself a lot more. But that's just me, that's my workflow. It's with anything editing, it's about figuring out what's going to work for you, what types of things you get hung up on, and what types of things in the end really matter to you or your audience. Okay, so it looks like we're just about done with that. Usually there's 2 steps to the render. Maybe that was the second one. Overall. Verdict. Overall. Okay, so that one to me looks a lot better. So we can copy and paste our zoom here. We'll hit this one. Now I need to figure out this mess. More intuitive editor. Riverside, it's fine for recording, and it'll get the job done for editing. But for me, it really does come down to a workflow thing. So let's talk about the pros and cons. Descript's pros. So let's. I'm not sure what that sound was, but that's why I restarted. It really does come down to a workflow thing. So let's talk about. I can tighten that up a little bit. It really does come down to a workflow thing. So let's talk about the pros and cons. Descript's pros. Descript's pros. More intuitive editor, more key commands. It works equally well with uploaded files as natively recorded files. It provides more flexibility when you're editing. You can easily copy and paste content from one composition to another, and this makes it easier to create things like compilations or narrative-style projects from various projects you're working on. You can export the timeline in 6 common audio or video formats, or I guess it combines 6 different formats, some being audio, some being video, and it has a multi-track audio editor. Descript's cons. We don't need to hear me swallow, and it has a multi-track audio editor. Descript's cons. And it has a multi-track audio editor. Descript's cons. Biggest. Track audio editor. Descript's cons. Biggest one is probably their new pricing model, which has changed from charging per trans. Descript's cons. And it has a multi-track audio editor. Descript's cons. Has a multi-track audio editor. Descript's. I don't like that. Let's try pushing this out a touch. Has a multi-track audio editor. Descript's cons. Probably the biggest con is their new pricing model, which has changed from charging per transcription minute to each minute of content you record or upload. And this is a big change because for many of us, we weren't transcribing everything, and we upload a lot of redundant files. A typical 2-person podcast might have, say, 3 video files and 2 audio tracks. If this is a 60-minute episode, that's now going to count as 5 hours towards your monthly cap. Before, it would have counted as 2 hours if you were transcribing the audio. And that would be one of the video files. If you were transcribing the audio, and that would be one of the video files. The audio, and that would be one of the video files for each person or one of the audio. If you were transcribing the audio, and that would be one of the video files for each person or one of the audio tracks for each person. So 2 hours there. Descript is not as flexible as a true NLE, so that's a bit of a con, but it might not be for all of you. Another one is it's cloud-based. One thing that comes to mind, some of you might be wondering why I don't do just a multi-track or multicam edit with the 2 different zoom levels. One of the main reasons is because Hindenburg, since it's Hindenburg, they haven't figured out how to handle audio from multicam setups, so it becomes a little more challenging. I suppose I could probably create a multicam and then detach the audio. Maybe that would work. I'd have to try that to see if it would actually work. But Hindenburg doesn't have the best track record with Final Cut Pro XML files, so I can't remember if I've tried doing it that way or not. But that's the reason why I do the copy and paste for the different camera angles, because my workflow includes Hindenburg and I have to work around its little quirks, as it's cloud-based. And for some reason, at some point in time, they removed the ability to work with local files. So you need to be connected to the internet, and you're always prone to Descript's servers being down. And if that's the case, you're likely not able to work. Let's look at Riverside and Riverside's pros. Works well with you're likely not able to work. Let's look at Riverside. You're likely not able to work. Let's look at Riverside. Likely not able to work. Let's look at Riverside and Riverside's pros. It works well. Riverside's pros. It works well with content recorded within Riverside. Currently, there's no cap to the number of files or the length of files that you can upload for editing. It's designed to make it easy for beginners to edit. Riverside's cons. Many of the features seem to be works in progress, I'd say. The editor is clunky and not fully featured relative to Descript. It doesn't always work with uploaded files, as I discussed. Some files just get stuck processing. And just like Descript, Riverside is entirely cloud-based. Another one to be aware of is Riverside has Riverside is entirely cloud-based. Another one to be aware of is Riverside has very limited timeline export options. Currently, you can only export timelines for Final Cut Pro and Premiere. You don't have DaVinci, you don't have output file, or you don't have timelines for audio editors either. Output file, you don't have. You don't have DaVinci, you don't have timelines. You don't have timelines for audio editors either. So overall, I just prefer timelines for audio editors either. So overall, lines for audio editors either. So overall, I just prefer working in Descript better. It's been a nicer experience. It's not perfect, but it offers a workflow that's more in line with what I'm used to in Final Cut Pro. And like I mentioned earlier, Riverside's editor is just clunky, and honestly, for me, it feels like it's still in beta, or still in development. I've had multiple video files that would get stuck processing. Delete doesn't work most of the time. Files that would get stuck processing. Delete doesn't work most of the time to delete text, and there are very few key commands. All of this just makes Riverside a very mouse and click process that I just feel like I need to do a little bit more of everything to do the same things in Riverside as I would in Descript. And I know that might have been a clunky way to phrase things. I feel like Riverside makes me work harder to do the same things I can do in Descript. Descript feels just much more mature by comparison, and I never thought I'd say this, but it's just a more intuitive UI UX, which was always my biggest issue with it when I've tried it in the past. And it seems like they finally improved the UI UX to the point that it's no longer a weakness. So if you're just starting out and you have no experience editing content, Riverside, it's going to be fine for you because you're learning it from the ground up. You won't really be noticing that there's features that are missing or that the tools don't work as well as they might in other tools, as they might in other platforms, like features that there's features that are missing or that the tools don't work as well as they might in other tools, as they might in other platforms. Challenge here is finding the best place to make a cut to splice this together. Usually I do a pretty good job of restarting from the same place, but this time I restarted kind of in the middle, as they might that there's features that are missing or that the tools don't work as well as they might in other tools. So I'm just cutting tools and replacing it with platforms as well as they might in other platforms like. Okay, I hate it when I'm zoomed in or out a little bit and it shows down at the bottom a little piece of audio, but then I zoom in and there's nothing there. Or that the tools don't work as well as they might in other platforms. I can tighten that up a little bit more to sound more natural. Well as they might in other platforms. And I don't think I will be able to get that quite tight enough. What can we do with the audio? Yeah, there's no way to really fix that. Well as they might in other platforms. So I need to put more of a pause there because without it, it just sounds unnatural. Well as they might in other platforms. Might in other platforms. That's one of the big things when it comes to editing dialogue is understanding pacing. And when we think, sometimes we can hear it in our voices. And if we cut that pause a little too short, it sounds unnatural. That's what I'm working on here. It's working on the timing between edits is where you can make things sound natural or unnatural. That's why I put so much time into this part of the editing. As they might in other platforms like River. And I do all of that to find out that I couldn't even finish the thought and started it completely over. Because you won't notice the missing features. That there's features that are missing or that the tools don't work as well as they might in other platforms like River. I don't even know where to pick this up. Riverside, it's going to be fine for you because you're learning it from the ground up. You won't really be noticing that there's features that are missing or that the tools don't work as well as they might in other platforms like River. Yeah, I don't know where my mind was at this when I was recording this. Because you won't notice the missing features. You won't notice the workflow or anything else. Maybe I'm starting further back. Was always my biggest issue with it when I've tried it in the past. And it seems like they finally improved the UI UX to the point that it's no longer a weakness. So if you're just starting out and you have no experience editing content, Riverside, it's going to be fine for you because you're learning it from the ground up. You won't really be noticing that there's features that are missing or that the tools don't work as well as they might in other platforms like River. Okay, so this is going to be a rough edit, or a rough cut. Platforms like okay, so we're going to cut at bring it in here, work as well as they might in other platforms because you won't platforms because you won't. I have to do a fade out here. Actually, let's see if we can just go one frame. One frame's a bit too much. So we'll go one frame. We'll expand out the audio. Do that. Forms, because you won't. Okay, so that's looking or sounding better, I think. Platforms, because you won't. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. They might in other platforms, because you won't notice the missing features. Because you won't. Can we hide this with Flow? Forms, because you won't. No, my stupid hands. Other platforms, because you won't know. Almost. It was worth a shot. Forms, because you won't notice the missing features. You won't notice the workflow or anything else that you might if you have experience with other software. But if you're thinking about switching from Descript to Riverside, maybe because of their recent pricing changes, you may find that Riverside is just lacking in some ways. And my best advice is to test each platform out to see which one works best for you. Now, what about you? If you've used both of these, Descript and Riverside, which do you prefer and why? If you only use one of them, what do you like and what do you find frustrating about that one? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you found this video helpful. If you've missed any of the other videos in this series where I compare the audio and video quality, the editing process, or the repurposing content workflows, you can find all of those in this playlist up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Okay, so I've got the editing done. Oh, I don't have time to continue the stream, but my next steps would be to go through, add any additional B-roll, add a call to action to subscribe, all that stuff. Then I'll export the audio or export the Final Cut Pro XML, bring that into Hindenburg to mix the audio. I'll export the audio out as an Apple lossless file. I'll bring that back in, double check it to make sure we've got alignment, and then I'm done. I export the video, upload that to YouTube, take the transcript, or take the audio file, transcribe it, throw that into Gemini to generate the title, description, and timestamps. If I have time, I'll live stream that process, but I'm not sure if I will have time or not. But thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.